Devils Wednesday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 153, titled, What Will Fitzy Do Before NHL Trade Deadline? I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with Pucks and Pitchforks blog editor-in-chief, Nick Villano, streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network. Nick, it's the most wonderful time of the year. Rumors galore, speculation, stupid trolls on the internet making up stuff in their head, but thinking it is fact. I don't know. But all I know is I think Fitzy should stand pat. That's just me. I don't see the point of making...
You don't even want a Subban deal?
At this point, who will really take Subban if he's going to be released from his contract and can sign minimum?
I don't think they should do that. I think that option should be off the table. You should just play Subban for the rest of the year. Like, cutting him for nothing is an idiotic move, if you ask me. I think that's the worst possible move. That if he makes that move, I feel like Fitzgerald made one incredibly smart move last year at the deadline by getting Jonas Siegenthaler. Can't take anything away from that. The rest of the deadline was pretty bungled. Lou Lamoriello forced him to push in all of his chips into one basket just to get a first-round pick that he uses on Chase Stillman. And then, he tried to put Sammy Vatanen on waivers so he could lower his cap hit, and then somebody took him, so he lost him for nothing. He ended up losing Nikita Gusev for nothing. It was not, when it came to what he was selling, he didn't make the best moves. The year before, he made stupendous moves with the Blake Coleman deal and a couple others. But if this year he gets nothing out of Subban, nothing, zero, zilch, I don't think the fact that him cutting him is going to do as much for future players or for the players on this team as much as he thinks. It's not like he's a cancer to the locker room. It's not like he's somebody like the young players seemingly really like him. So why take him off the team for nothing? I don't understand the value in that.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, but here I just adjusted your frame.
See that.
Now you look a lot better. It was just annoying me. OCD galore from a producer. But I'll be honest with you, Nick. I'll be honest with you. I don't want to see a knee-jerk reaction. I don't want to see... I don't know. When you talk about names like Pavel Zacha, Andreas Janssen, I think there's something good going here. I think sometimes the best move is not to make a move. But what can you really get on trade deadline from these players other than draft picks?
Well, Ben Sherratt,
with the exception of Subban.
Ben Sherratt got a first-round pick, a fourth-round pick, and a prospect, a decent prospect for Ben Sherratt, who's not good. He's been playing better with Martin St. Louis, but he's not good. I think when it comes to when it comes to Pavel Zacha, and even to a smaller degree, Damon Severson, I think the deal is that you're doing it to swap players, not a complete sell job. You're not trading. The point isn't to trade Pavel Zacha for a second-round pick and a third-round pick, or a second-round pick and a flyer prospect or whatever. The point is to swap, to make a flip-flop deal. I'm trying to remember the deal that happened a couple years ago where young players went both ways, and I think it was with the Blackhawks and the Coyotes, but it's escaping me right now. But there's been deals before where 22, 23-year-olds go both ways, and it's just trying to find a change of scenery for both. I don't think that Pavel Zacha's ever going to hit. Last year was his ceiling. That was his Devils ceiling. He led the team in points. He got a couple clutch goals. His shot really took a step forward. This year, he's back to... He's an average NHL player this year. which is fine. You need average players. You do. You can't pay everybody. But the problem is that everywhere I see, everybody's saying that Pavel Zacha is going to get a significant raise. How is in what world does Pavel Zacha deserve a significant raise, especially when you got to pay Miles Wood and Jesper Bratt? And I don't know what Wood's worth because he hasn't played this season. He has one good season into the Lindy Ruff regime. He has 2 bad seasons previously under this contract. So basically, he was good for 1 out of his 4 seasons under this contract. What do you pay a Miles Wood? But Miles Wood is clearly very important to this team. So you have to give him something. You're not going to just throw him into anything. And the Devils are working with about $24 million in cap space next year. Let's say, for argument's sake, let's say Wood and Bratt take up 10 of that 24 million, right? Just to be hopeful. You fill two of the 4 necessary spots to fill in the lineup with people on entry level contracts, whether that's Holtz and Tice Thompson or Holtz and Kevin Ball or something along those lines. So you're looking at around 10 to $12 million to work with in cap space. That's fine, right? That's not bad. But if you're giving Zacha 5 of that, now you're $5 million away from the cap. Now you're very close to a cap team without making a move. You're sending out this same exact team that you have right now. That includes the goalies, Sam. That's a Jonathan Bernier, Mackenzie Blackwood, Nico Dawes, picking 2 out of those 3. And you're $5 million away from the cap. So not only are you a cap team going into the year, you have a limited ability to make moves, in season because, $5 million is still a lot. You can do a decent amount with that in season. You can make those kinds of numbers work. But if you're a Devils team, I don't think anybody expects them to come out and be, metropolitan leaders next year. They hope that they can at least be, what we were expecting them to be this year, which was a playoff contender. But if you're sending out the same team next year, what is the expectation? And then, I think I'm leaning more towards that Lindy Ruff is going to keep his job. So in this situation, you'd send out the same coaching staff, the same players that were in last place this year. You're sending out a last place squad and just paying them more money. Is the ownership group going to like that? Who's you know what I mean? It's the first year of Jack Hughes' $8 million contract. He wasted his entry-level deal. That's what the Devils did. They wasted an entry-level deal to a generational player. They did the same thing, at least with Nico Hischier. You got 1 playoff appearance out of that entry-level contract, right? With Jack Hughes, you got absolutely nothing. You got basically 3 last place or second to last place finishes out of his entry-level contract. So it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to ponder for the Devils. And Tom Fitzgerald kind of has to figure that out. If he's going to keep this squad, he's not going to move Johnson. He's not going to move Tatar. He's not going to move Severson. He's not going to move Zacha. Well, you're a little hamstrung on what you can do next season.
Yeah. And these are things to think about. Bratt is a no-brainer. You have to sign him. You have to sign him long term because Bratt is a multi-dimensional player. He's a leader of this team. He is a player that has overachieved. 6th-round pick. Always, again, he had his issues, but that if you can bench Jesper Bratt, he becomes an all-star player right afterwards. Jokingly. But yeah. I honestly think Zacha, as much as I like the big body, all that, he's just not consistent. It's a matter of what year is it? Is it going to be last season Zacha, who we like, or this season Zacha, who's having a very quiet year? Quiet 13, 14 goals he has, most of it accumulated in the beginning of the first 6 weeks of the season. You just simply can't have that. He has a lot of value right now. again, I don't want to see the Devils trading some of their homegrown players, but at some point, you got to hold these players accountable. These are Ray Shero players, for all intents and purposes. The clock, for me, even though Fitzgerald was involved with the team under Shero, his clock started in 2020, and he gets
That's
a
fair.
pass. He gets a pass for the COVID shortened season and all the BS that came with it. All right, we haven't seen the other picks that he has made. Mohamedulin, Stillman. Okay, the jury's out there, but Mercer's looking fantastic. That was a wonderful move.
Although
Holtz is looking fantastic.
you gotta give partial credit to Shero for that because he's the one who made the trade to get that pick.
Yeah, but Fitzgerald would have done the same thing too.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, Arizona is so bad that even I could have made a trade to Arizona.
Fair.
Yeah,
and that was prior to the Cheka exit too. So that definitely rocked that franchise. No, I hear you. I think that's a fair statement to say that you have to restart the clock at 2020. And I've liked 80% of Tom Fitzgerald's moves, even today, even looking back at them and seeing how they worked out. And, I liked them just as much as I did when they happened. Love the Graves trade. I was curious about the Siegenthaler trade. But once I did some research on it, I was like, it's not a bad flyer, and it worked out incredibly well. I didn't hate I loved the Hamilton signing. I think that's going to work out really well long term. His only injury this year was complete fluke, so I'm not worried about him being out of the lineup. I love the Jack Hughes contract. I love the only thing.
Real quick before I get Rob Taub on, the only gripe I have with Fitzgerald is signing backup goaltenders. He gets an F in that.
I don't even know if it's his fault, but yeah.
Well, you know what? You got to be harsh somewhere. Because if not, then it looks like we're a bunch of homers, which we probably are. But the one thing I will say, though, about Fitzgerald is you talked about Ray Shero pulling off that Arizona trade, but what Fitzgerald has done with that trade has been amazing. Because it's the gift that keeps on giving. And it looks fantastic so far because some of the pieces that he got Siegenthaler pretty much out of it indirectly, Yaros indirectly, and I think didn't they send one of those picks to Colorado for Ryan Graves?
That was different.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of something else possibly.
They sent the pick to get Siegenthaler. That was the only, and then they used the other pick to take Mercer. So basically the two picks turned into almost immediate NHL players, and then they sent Merkley to San Jose for Yaros. And the other two players are Ball and Shar. Who's Shar's turning out to be
he's a pretty good player.
In Utica. Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad move. I don't know what to think of Ball. Friend of the podcast, Jack Dawkins, loves Ball. Maybe we could talk to him about it. But right now he's playing on the third line in Utica. So I don't know how to.
He had a good stretch there. But hey, I'm gonna get our next guest on. Talk to social media. Yep.
I will talk to the social media. Social media, how we're doing tonight? Oh, it's bumping. What's up with Zaka? Craig Best. He's hurt right now, and that's bad news for us. That is not good for us. Sorry, Craig. You don't want to see him next season. This injury might. We'll see. We'll talk to Rob Taub about it and see what he thinks. Move Zaka from center wing and wonder why he's not playing well. He had his best season at wing last year, Corbin. He had his very best season. And obviously he was playing alongside Nico Hischier. That definitely helps. He was playing alongside Jesper Bratt. That definitely helps as well. I don't know. I don't know what it is with Zacha. I never will. I'm back and forth with Zacha and how I feel about him. I feel like I just need to succumb to the fact that he's inconsistent. And if this is what he is. He is a player who's going to go on stretches where he scores 8 points in 6 games. And then he's going to go on a stretch where he scores 0 points in 6 games. So do I want to live with that anymore? I don't know. Sam, you're back.
I'm back. I'm back with our good friend of the podcast. His name is Rob Taub. He's a producer at NHL.com. You can find him on Twitter at rtaub_. Rob, you're on with Sam and Nick. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Hey, Rob. Good to have you on again. We always love talking to you. Glad to get you on right before the trade deadline. We got 2 teams that are in kind of similar positions here with the Islanders and the Devils. Not great seasons from the 2 of us. Sorry to say. Usually we have you on and you get to gloat a little bit. This year's a little different.
Yeah, it's been a very trying year. Just some of the quotes that have come out from the team, from Barry Trotz himself, talking about it being a mentally crushing type of year. It's just, it's been very hard to watch. There's been some good spots, but there's been a lot of bad, and just been a weird time for the Islanders, especially coming off especially the 2 Eastern Conference Finals appearances, and then you open up a new building, you can't even get in there until November, and it's just everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. And I hate to say it, it's kind of the same way over in the Garden State with you guys. The goaltending situation, the inconsistency from forwards, still lacking 1 or 2 good pieces to finally put you over the hump. It's been a tale of 2 seasons, but we're in similar positions. So I got to agree with you there.
And we wanted to bring you on because it's right before the trade deadline. Like I said, we're both in similar positions. But here's the other thing: is that it doesn't sound like there's not, and obviously Lou Lamoriello doesn't let rumors out anyway, so you don't get a ton of rumors from there. But all of the moves that have been rumored for these 2 teams are kind of like they're not complete seller moves. So what are your expectations for these 2 teams? Do you think there's going to be any deadline fireworks, or do you think it's going to be stand pat and just kind of figure it out in the offseason?
Well, I think to start with the Devils, I think that Tom Fitzgerald is going to stand pat. I see the progress. You see they're a team that they're a feisty team. I was watching the game against Vancouver last night. Go down 2-0, fight back, make it 2-2. Then Vancouver scores again. Then it's just like they're a feisty bunch. I think that the pieces are there, but I still think they're lacking something. And I was listening to you before I came on. You talked about Pavel Zacha. After what happened last year, I thought he was really going to take another step forward, but it's just been inconsistency again. And I don't know how much longer they're going to want to deal with that. I think that the Devils do stand pat. I don't think they need to go after a goaltender. I think the whole Mackenzie Blackwood situation has just really been it's been a total negative on their season. I mean, I don't want to get into semantics, but the whole COVID thing and just ever since him getting hurt, and it's just been bad all around. And I just don't think they need to go after a goaltender. To sell off pieces, I don't think they should. I think they have the ones in place that I think they want for the future. And I think they have a few on the farm, Alexander Hoyt and a few other guys that are obviously doing well down there. And maybe they just need another year of seasoning before they finally take that step to the NHL. I mean, we saw him a little bit this year, and he was okay. He wasn't great, but he's a rookie, and that comes with the territory. But I don't know. I just don't see the Devils making any significant moves. I don't think, unless like Tom Fitzgerald has his socks knocked off, I just can't see it, especially in the position the Devils are now where I hate to say they're in mediocrity. They're in the middle where you're not anywhere near a playoff spot and you're towards the bottom. So I think for the Devils, I think they stand pat. I don't think they should do anything. Let them do their damage in the offseason. That's where they've been able to do it the past few years. So I look for Tom Fitzgerald to do his work come the summertime.
So, just to mention Zacha again, let's say he's out. It looks like he's out tonight against the Flames, and let's say he comes back for the game before the deadline. I think it's on Saturday, and he's fine. Do you think that other teams value him? Maybe, I mean, especially more than Devils fans, but maybe more than the Devils might. Is there a change of scenery aspect with him that you think other teams might see? Big body, lots of skill, great shot, and think, I could fix him, and they're willing to maybe, I don't want to say overspend, but give the value that maybe he's worth? Or do you think that it's just not worth even dangling him at this point?
I mean, there's always the thought with any player, change of scenery, who's been in an organization for a long time and just hasn't found that next level. And I don't know if there could be a few teams that would look at a guy like Zacha. He is, like you said, big, strong, got skill, he can score, but the inconsistency is what still bothers me. And I think it would bother a lot of teams that, you bring him as like a rental to the playoffs. And I think he's only been in the playoffs once with the Devils, I think, and that was their only year when you guys got dragged there by Taylor Hall. And I don't remember him doing much in that, like in those few games. So I don't know. Zacha is an interesting case. I remember talking to you guys about him for like the last 2 years, and it's just been the same. Like it's the same stuff over and over again. When is this guy going to become a consistent producer? And it's not to say that he didn't do it last year. I think maybe the shortened season kind of, a few players had really good seasons last year, and Pavel Zacha was one of them. And I think that having that shortened season where, everything was going to be unexpected. You didn't know what to expect because you're starting in January, which is totally different from the routine of starting in October, an 82-game grueling season. Now it's a 56-game season where, you're a little bit fresher. Your mind's a little bit more clear. So, I can't see Fitzgerald moving him unless, it's a really, really solid deal. And I think if it would be, it would have to involve a defenseman coming back. I think that's still the thing that the Devils are lacking is defense. I love the Dougie Hamilton move from the summer. I like some of the guys that they're starting to bring into the mix. I don't know how much longer they're going to have PK Subban, in a Devil uniform. He's getting another year older. He could, he's still an okay player, but he's not the same like he used to be. And I think, if you're going to go young now, just like you've gone with the forwards, I like their forwards. I definitely like their forwards. Jack Hughes, he's a stud. Jesper Bratt is having a year no one's talking about, 56 points in 55 games. He's not getting a lot. He doesn't get enough respect around the league, but he's a really, really good player. And, they have the pieces there on offense. It's still defense. And like I mentioned before, goaltending, that's where the problem still lies. And that's why they are where they are.
I have a question for you because you brought up defense, and one of the major problems with the defense right now is Ty Smith. He just didn't come to play this year. I don't know what the issue is, but I've heard some people who say, because Ty Smith's name has been brought up in some Vancouver Canucks rumors, and the people who say don't trade Smith have brought up the name Noah Dobson. Dobson, I think, is around 1 year older than Smith, and he's breaking out this season. 34 points in 55 games, finally finding that offensive upside, seemingly good on both sides of the ice. We saw good Smith last year and bad Smith this year. Do you think that watching Dobson and watching him grow, do you think that there's some similarities there?
I think there are. Here's the thing with what happened with Noah Dobson this year. When the Islanders got hit with their COVID situation, and he was still one of the last regulars remaining out of all the guys who got it, he had to step up, and there was no other choice. To start the year, he was okay. He wasn't great, but once he got that extra playing time, once he got that confidence that you started seeing it rolling night after night after night. Now you're seeing it now where he's getting a point per game. He had 2 last night. I don't know if I would say there's similarities. I think with Smith, last year that he came in, again, he's a rookie. You don't really know the book on him. Now teams know the book on him. And yes, he struggled. I wouldn't trade him. I think he's still young, still developing. They say defensemen take longer in the league to develop than forwards because it's the harder position to play. It's the much more tougher position to play. So I think that are there some similarities? Yes. I still think Smith needs to get better in the defensive zone. I saw the mistake he made yesterday, leading to one of the Vancouver goals. And you did mention Vancouver, who they played last night. I don't know who exactly would be coming back in return if you're trading a Ty Smith, unless you're getting like a Brock Besser, which I like Besser, but I think he's not like, I think he still has another level he can get to. I know he's a goal scorer, which the Devils can always use on offense, but I would keep Ty Smith. I'm not sold on trading a very young defenseman who is supposed to really be one of the cornerstones of your team for the next 5, 6, 7 years. I'm not saying I know he didn't get a lot of Calder like love last year, even though he probably deserved it, but he's still young. These are young kids. You got to let them grow. And the same thing with Dobson. And I think, Smith had to be thrown into the fire last year because he made the team when everyone was pleading that he make the team. And yeah. I just think that Smith, he's going to keep growing. I think this year, for not even just the Devils, I think also for this year is an anomaly. Like, there were so many things that just were out of their control. And anytime, like, maybe they got a little rhythm, it got stopped, things of like just not in the nature you see in a regular 82-game season. I can't even tell you how many stoppages there were this year, not even just for the Devils, but the Islanders too. It's just like a lot of guys on both teams this year. And, especially Smith and a guy like Dobson, like, it's two different situations. And I think a lot of it had to do with the kind of playing time and the roles that they were supposed to be in this year.
Yeah, I agree. I don't want to move Ty Smith. It just doesn't seem like it's a move of value. I don't think you're going to get equal value for Ty Smith, even if you get Besser. Besser's going to get paid this offseason, and Smith's not. So there's a lot of factors there.
Look, trading a 21-year-old defenseman is not the greatest look unless you're getting something ridiculously good in return. And I think that's something that Tom Fitzgerald definitely and his staff should definitely have in the back of their mind. He's only 21. The 21 guys like him don't grow on trees. Where I can't remember what year he was drafted, but he made it to the league. He made it to the league last year after what, about 3 years of developing. So, it's sometimes it's not a great look to trade those type of defensemen. I know not like perfect example, but like the Islanders traded Devon Taves, which I will, I could talk about all day, which I know why they had to do it, but he was, 23, 24 years old and a little different than the Ty Smith situation, but another defenseman. Those guys they don't grow on trees. You have that's why to trade like players like that, it's a risk. It's a high risk, and it might come at a low reward sometimes for certain teams.
Yeah, I agree. I think the value there is not there. So I think Smith should be off the table, and a couple of the other struggling young players, that they've talked about, just take them off the table. We'll figure it out later. So we just saw the deal for Ben Chiarot. He got a massive haul. Do you think that's one
which I don't
team?
Understand?
It doesn't make much sense. It doesn't. There's no reason to even give up a first-round pick for Chiarot, let alone a first, a fourth, and a prospect. But is this a sign of things to come for this trade market, or do you think this is a one-off? We see these one-off deals some years where one team wows the pants off a team 3 days before, and then it kind of peters out. What kind of trade deadline do you think we're going to see this week?
I think it could be an exciting deadline if a lot of teams prefer to be sellers instead of, usually like saying that, oh, we're going to retool or we're going to rebuild. I think that's where things could get interesting. Just to take the 2-3 deals that have happened the past like 2 or 3 days. I'm sorry, like the last 2 days, you had Joe going for Nico Sturm in the Colorado-Minnesota trade. Those that's the kind of trade where it's like, all right, both teams needed something. They felt like they needed something extra. They needed something different, and they felt like those guys, and vice versa, were what they needed. And like the Frank Bertrano to the Rangers trade, it's funny. I was talking with a friend of mine at the driving range earlier today. He's a huge Ranger fan, And I say, he's like, we need top 6 forward. I'm like, no, you need bottom 6 forwards. And I said, you're going to trade for a bottom 6 forward. What do you know? Frank Petrano, like he's going to be used in the bottom 6. Like I can't see him in the top 6 with the power, the skill that the Rangers have up there. But I don't know. The names that are out there, you know, the Claude Giroux, you mentioned the Ben Sherratt, where we just that kind of deal. You know, his name was floated for God knows how long, and the package that came back in return is, I think that's a clear winner. I forgot who was the team we traded for him. Haven't been out of the loop, but like it's just like if those teams know that they're in it to win it, and those sellers know that all right, we can get like a huge package back, you know, like example Sherratt, then that's what's going to make it exciting. Usually, we know this by now, where the trade deadline, it's not really till like the last like 10 minutes where things really start to heat up because that's when teams know they're up against the clock, and you know that's when things get really, really scary or really, really like fiery. So I don't know. I think I'd love to see a crazy deadline because I don't think we've had one in a long time. And I think after what happened last year with COVID and, you know, teams now more like looking towards the future and trying to build like towards next year, I don't know. I think it could be exciting. It could also be a dud. It all comes down to, are the star players really going to get moved, and what are the packages in return? Because if the Sherratt deal is not the example, but that's what teams are looking for in return for rentals, then it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a great deadline. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But it should be. Hopefully, it should be exciting.
Yeah, and I'm trying to figure out because the Eastern Conference is basically figured out. The Capitals are 13 points ahead of the Blue Jackets, and the Bruins are 24 points ahead of the Red Wings. So, you know, there's really not much of a chance that any of the teams outside of the top 8 is going to go anywhere. I'm trying to figure out whether that means it's going to cause more movement because these teams know that if they make this move, they're not going to fall out of the playoffs, or if it's going to cause less movement because there's less teams involved. But then you look at the West, and especially the Pacific, you know, you still got like, you could probably argue that 7 teams are somewhat in it. It's probably 6, taking out the Sharks. You know, the Ducks, the Canucks, the Golden Knights, the Oilers are all kind of in that same realm.
Well, the Ducks seem like they're selling already by trading Manson. So I think we have a clear indication that maybe they're looking towards next year.
Yeah, and that's definitely true. You know, they're not as high as they were at one point, but you know, the Canucks are in a weird spot. You know, like you said, Besser's been in rumors, and there's Connor Garland's been in rumors, and they seem like the most likely team to make a hockey trade, and they've been tied to the Devils for a long time. Do you see those teams making moves? I don't know what the Golden Knights can do. They're so close to the cap. They're already pulling some lightning stuff just to get the team on the ice. Do you see basically I'm asking, do you see teams who are close to the edge of the playoffs making those deals to make the playoffs? Or do you think these are generally be looking ahead to the postseason type moves?
I think it's mostly looking ahead for the postseason type moves. I think that some teams like to just, if they know that they like to roll with what they have and, you know, see where it takes them. You talk about teams that are close to the playoff line, then that's what's going to happen. You have those 2 or 3 teams that will make a move to solidify. All right, we're trying to make the playoffs. We're not looking towards next year. But I think there could be more movement in the West. And we're starting to see it a little bit with some of the trades that have come down now. You know, Calgary makes a move, Seattle makes a move. You know, Seattle made they made the Yarncroke trade, but yeah, Calgary makes the 2 moves. You had the Colorado move, you had the Minnesota move. So I think you'll see more movement in the West and the East. We know who's making the playoffs, and it's funny that you did mention Washington. I still think their goaltending situation, I still think they could use another goaltender. I don't know if I would trust Samsonov or Vanacek in the playoffs. But, I think because the East is probably set for now, I think the West is where, people are going to have their eyes glued to, because it's going to be a dogfight for the next month until the season's over. And you have those teams, like you said, you have you have Dallas, you have Vancouver, you have Vegas. I still think Vegas is making the playoffs. I think if they just need to get healthy, and if they get healthy, people should really, really be scared. But I feel like with those teams, not solidified at the moment, I think that's where you're going to see a lot more movement and a lot more maybe hockey trades, or we're going for it trades.
Okay. Well, one last question for you, Rob, before we kind of see what you've been up to and let you check out some hockey tonight. Jack Hughes has just been – he's on another level this year. And I'm trying to figure out whether I'm trying not to get too excited. I've been hurt before, Rob, and I don't want to get hurt again. But when I see this kid play, he looks like something I've never seen in a Devils uniform anymore. And he's 20. He is 20 years old, and he's signed for 8 more seasons. Am I looking at a top 10 player in this league in 3 to 4 years? Is this what I'm seeing? Because this is what it looks like. Or is this just kind of like, is he lifted up by being surrounded by less than stellar players?
I think, and just to not damper your excitement, I think you're going to see a top 5 player in the next 2 to 3 years. Watching him this year, the confidence that he's showing on the ice, his defensive game has gotten better, but watch him on offense and the way he's able to just generate and move the puck, and how his skating is just unreal. And, even the goal he scored last night, the breakaway, he's 1 goal from his first 20-goal season. That should make you even more excited that he can be a 25, 30-goal scorer. I don't know if he'll hit 30, but he could definitely hit 25 before this year is over. But I think that he's shown that, he's taken that next step. And he really, really, I think last year you saw the warts in his game, and maybe he wasn't as confident, but now you see the swagger, and you see like him and guys like Zegras and Raymond. These young guys are playing with so much swagger, and it makes them so much fun to watch. It has you glued to the television. And, I get why you might be a little hesitant to get too excited, but this kid's the real deal, man. You drafted him number 1 overall for a reason. And you've seen this year, I'm trying to remember how many points he had. He's got 46 points in 40 games. He could probably have another 14 or 15 if maybe the Devils were, had a few more wins, because the way he plays, especially when the Devils are on their game, it runs through him, and he's an electrifying player, and I think he's just scratching the surface of what he can be. And I think if you have like we said in the beginning, there's pieces around him, but he's elevating these guys. He's elevating this team. Now it's just like you got to add, and then you can be a playoff team and maybe a possible contender in a few years. But I see him as a top 5 player in this league in the next 2 to 3 years. I think there's still guys that are ahead of him, but it's also look at the teams that they play for, and they have more skill around them. They have more experience, more winning, more like the Devils are still trying to build a culture, I would say. I'm not saying that they haven't, but they haven't built that winning culture yet. And Hughes is a major, major part of it. That's why I would actually have my expectations even higher for the next few years, that he's going to become one of the best players in the league. He's not there yet. I'll say it again, but he's going to get there. It's inevitable. He's so good, and he's just a treat to watch every night.
Rob Taub, you're a producer, you're a writer. Where can people find where your work is, what you're working on now, what's coming up in the next week or two?
It's actually funny. I don't actually write anymore. I haven't really been able to. Being affiliated with the league, they don't want you to write anymore, and I've followed that rule since the moment they told me. So I'm just really just behind the scenes doing stuff for the NHL, and I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'd love to write again, but right now I'm just living the dream right now, having fun working for a league that I never thought would come knocking on my door.
Yeah, we love having you on, Rob. We'll keep having you on. This is probably your 6th or 7th appearance.
I'll be on during the playoffs. We can have a bonfire.
There you go. I love a playoff bonfire. Yeah, maybe we'll make some predictions for the playoffs. Maybe Sam, how does that sound? Since there ain't no chance in hell any of us are doing anything else for the playoffs, so we'll make a couple playoff predictions. We'll have our good friend Rob Taub on. But Rob, enjoy living the dream. We'll make sure we're always rooting for you. We love the gifts. We love the Twitter account. Make sure to follow Rob at @rtaub_. And we'll have you on again soon, Rob.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Rob. That is Rob Taub, NHL.com producer, living the dream where he doesn't have to write and he's behind the scenes.
Here's the thing that's really stuck out to talking to Rob. I think you're right, Sam. I think they're going to stand pat.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't agree with it, but I just don't. I don't think the market is going to. So yeah, when I say I don't agree with it, maybe that's not the right wording. I don't think the market is going to present itself in a way that is profitable to be a seller. If you have someone like Ben Sherratt, yeah, you're definitely going to do it. And the Devils have someone somewhat like that in PK Subban, but PK Subban costs $9 million a year, so that takes most teams out of the equation. They have a Jimmy Vesey who, has some value, especially for a team that needs penalty killing. But again, you're looking at like a 4th-round pick there, which is nice. You paid nothing for him. You got him in the offseason on a professional tryout. And if you turn that into a 4th-round pick, great. I'm trying to figure out where the deals come. And the only deal that makes any sense is the Vancouver one, where we get Besser or Garland. I think Garland's still on the table. I think the reason why it's on hold right now is I think the Devils and the Canucks are trying to figure out a gigantic trade. And Vinny Parisi wrote a piece on that. I think you're talking to him in a few minutes, right?
Yep. Game Day Live coming up soon.
Yeah. So make sure you bring this up when you talk to him. But I think he brought up a big trade where the Devils get both Garland and Besser. But I think you lose Ty Smith in that deal. And I think that's where the hang-up is. I think the Canucks are demanding a defenseman, a young defenseman, and Ty Smith is the best that they're going to give up because they're not going to give up Siegenthaler. They're not going to – I mean, I can see them giving up Graves, but I don't think that's a good idea. I think Smith would be the more likely option there. And I don't think Graves is moving the needle for Vancouver. So that's why I don't think you should move him. It's not like you can replace Smith and put in Graves and they're happy. So I think they're asking for a package of Smith, Zacha, and a first for Zacha and Besser. And I think Tom Fitzgerald is saying that is not happening. I think that's where the hang-up is. I really do. Based on what the things I hear, based on the things that, and then me putting together the pieces, I think the ask is huge. I think the Devils' ask is huge. I think they're going back and forth with these gigantic asks. And maybe it'll work out, but I think that they're too far apart right now for it to work out right now.
Would you do this deal? Would you do this deal? You want to talk about blockbuster? I didn't even do the numbers. Garland, Quinn Hughes, and Besser for Zacha, Smith, Severson, and
you're going to have to add one more piece.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one is that piece. Andreas Janssen.
And that's not the piece. I would do it, but that's not the piece. The piece would hurt. The piece would probably be Mercer.
Yeah, you can't trade either one. They're untouchable.
Yeah,
but
I think you can't trade either of them.
But Severson, you're giving up Smith.
Severson, Smith, yeah, but Quinn Hughes is signed for 7 years. That has a ton of value. It's the type of deal that I think makes sense, but I think that it's missing a little bit of value for Vancouver. I think they're going to ask for, if you can get them to take.
I'm talking blockbuster. I mean, it would be really blockbuster. I haven't done the numbers.
Would you give up our first in that deal? Would you add if you take out Janssen and give up our first?
No, I wouldn't do that because so far I've been impressed with Fitzgerald's drafting. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
I don't think I would either.
It's probably going to have to be. You know what? If you really want to go all out, I hate to do it, but I would add in either Sharon Govich or Bratt.
I'm not adding in Bratt. You're not getting equal value. You then skew it very far into Vancouver's direction if you add in Bratt. Sharon Govich is interesting because I'm curious of what his value is outside of Hughes. Like, what happens when two wingers become better than Sharon Govich and make more sense with Hughes? We saw what happened to it earlier this year. Sharon Govich wasn't very good away from Hughes.
Yeah.
But we saw what happened with the Penguins when they lost Kunitz. That was the same situation where they thought, Kunitz was a product of Crosby. And while he was, Crosby also liked having Kunitz with him. And he was more productive with Kunitz with him. It's a double-edged sword there when you look at it. And I think that the Devils need to replace it. And maybe, if you're talking Sharon Govich, Smith, Severson, and what was the other piece?
Zaka.
For Besser, Hughes, and Garland. I mean, I think I'd do that trade. I think Vancouver's not happy with it still. I think they're missing. I think they're just a little short. That Quinn Hughes contract is phenomenal. It's very good. So if he stays, what he's doing this year, he was not very good last year. This year he's better from what I remember. I got to double check. Maybe was he bad at the beginning of this year? No, he was bad at the beginning of this year. He's better now.
I'll tell you the reason why the Devils would do it. I mean, I'm not saying I want Quinn Hughes. I'm only saying that the Devils are very marketing first versus the team first. They would want. I would think they want all three of them. All three of them on the team. I mean, when was the last time that's happened? Three brothers on the same team.
I think you're going to see a change in philosophy with this team. I think this team was marketing first for a while, but it's now failed with a couple stars. They went with Dougie Hamilton, who's not, I like Dougie. I think they've done a good job marketing what he is, but he didn't come in here as a marketable star. So I think that they're changing their philosophy a little bit. We'll see. But you gotta get ready, Sam. It's game day live time.
It is. Well, I told Vinny asked. He texted me. He said, "Oh, when are we going on?" I was like, "Well, when Nick decides to stop talking."
All right, let me do a quick plug.
Yeah.
Right now on pucksandpitchforks.com, we have we have a ton of stuff to talk about on pucksandpitchforks.com. It's already there. I kind of rated where the likelihood of each of the five most important Devils, the likelihood of them trading is. We got a piece on Luke Hughes being named co-freshman of the year in the Big Ten. David Holliday put together something of what to watch for as the trade deadline approaches. We have a trade deadline primer coming out tomorrow morning. That's from Jeremy Goldstein. I have an off-limits prospect piece, which ones should not be there. I talked about whether the Devils should take a flyer on Peter Mrazek, but it's going to cost Toronto a price. I talked about, I told you about the trade deadline piece with the Canucks. He made the trades. He figured out the trades. So that's up there. I really like the piece that I put together on Nico Dawes and what to make of his current stretch. I wrote that before yesterday. Yesterday was not a great night for him. I assume he would be back in net tonight, but pucksandpitchworks.com the rest of the week. And then on Monday, I will be up and I will have instant reaction to any move that the Devils make. I will talk to Vinny. I'm sure Vinny will do the same. We will have a lot of fun on trade deadline day. Let's hope there are moves because I like chaos, Sam.
You know what? I like chaos too. I'm the kind of guy that likes to look at a train wreck or a car wreck, as long as it's not me. And if you're going to make me late to a podcast, it better be good. Hate to say it, but anyway. Well, want to thank all those watching. Just a little programming note. It's going to take about 5 or 10 minutes. We're going to switch over to Game Day Live. So just hang out at our social media accounts, at Let's Go Devils Pod on Twitter, at Let's Go Devils Podcast on Twitch and Facebook Live, and Let's Go Devils channel on YouTube Live. We will be on probably in about 5-10 minutes as we're ending this podcast. And then Devils After Dark. After the game, Scotty of SiriusXM, Liquid Metal, and I will recap the game that was around 1:30 a.m. in the morning, like yesterday. Not getting any sleep.
No overtime.
Yep. And Nick, I'm not going to talk to you because we got to flip over, but let's text because let's get this coverage plan in order because I know our fans deserve some reaction from us come Monday. All right? I'll text you. All right. We're out. Till next time, let's go Devils.